Chelsea Zaccato.
And I'm Natalie Heacock.
And this is Lumber Slingers.
Each podcast, we will be bringing you relevant and useful industry information, including interviews with top lumber professionals and discussion of current events in the industry.
Whether it be lumber grading, industry and market trends, or who's who in lumber, we hope to extend your current tally on industry knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lumber Slingers.
Hello.
Today, we have an exciting guest. We have Arnie Didier. I didn't want to mess that up. And okay, good. He is the CEO and founder of the Forest Business Network and the International Mass Timber Conference. Welcome to the show, Arnie.
Well, I'm just pleased to be here. We got lumber people together. It's all good.
Yes, we love it. Would you, for our listeners, just give a little background about yourself?
Sure. So, kind of my educational background is forestry. So I have a forestry degree with a wood science specialization. And then I have a communications degree as well, which is people have made fun of me through the years. Do I want to talk to trees or what's the deal? And the reality is that I probably do that a little bit sometimes.
It's therapy.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up on a farm in Northern Illinois, and then my wife and I, Debbie is her name, and I have two daughters, Katie and Emma. They're grown and married and one grandchild. But so very blessed. You know, I kind of grew up in the industry. I started with Georgia Pacific. Actually, I was just thinking about it. It was March 10th, 1986. So just about 39 years ago, I started with Georgia Pacific in Elgin, Illinois, and moved through the ranks and ended up running the Midwest division for that. So had 10 distribution centers that I was in charge of, and then worked through that. And then Errol Darren and I, who's the head of Idaho Forest Group, founded a group that's when it was called Riley Creek in 2005. And formed that group. And that's when I left Georgia Pacific. And then I took a pretty big turn in my career. And I went to work for a nonprofit in Montana called the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I was very passionate about habitat in the woods and the forest, and kind of brought me back home. I realized after a few years that I wanted to get back into the industry, and I did that. And that's about the time that Craig Rawlings and I formed Forest Business Network. And that started as a kind of a consulting company on the technical side. Craig Rawlings is kind of legendary in the industry. He would probably be considered the biggest influencer at 73 years old.
I was going to say, I follow him on LinkedIn. I love his stuff.
He's incredible. He's one of the most generous men I've ever met. He's incredibly brilliant. He's bought and sold, probably founded 15 or 17 different companies.
Wow.
Family has sawdust in their blood. For any of you in the industry, if you've ever been to a sawmill, and when you first come in, one of the first pieces of machinery is called the Rawlings Wood Hog. It's a giant chipper. Now you'll look for it, and you know the logs can go through there. That his dad invented that.
No way.
Yeah, way. And his brother John, who lives in Missoula, still runs that company, that division. His other brother Mike runs one of the largest companies in the world that builds sawmills. So a lot of the sawmills that Patrick Lumber uses, Sierra Pacific. Think of this: Red Emerson, one of the founders of Sierra Pacific, was partners with Craig's dad.
Oh, wow.
Those sawmills on down the line, all the Canadian ones in the Southeast. So Craig is just an incredible partner to have. And then I have another partner who didn't come from the industry. His name's Tom Waddell, but he's a kind of a technological genius, literally. Websites, planning. He puts together the nuts and bolts, or has. Now we got some help with the conference. So we're a weird combination of three people in the industry that kind of built this Forest Business Network. And then we hosted a conference in Coeur d'Alene for many years called the Small Log Conference. And you hear that name, and really what it's about has been about is utilization of small diameter timber. It's one of the issues out there is how do you utilize that to create great, beautiful wood products? And it kind of grew from that. And then in 2016, the mass timber space started to blossom. And then we were asked to put that together. And so in 2016, we had the first International Mass Timber Conference. So it's kind of gravitated through that. But like I said, we've become a media company, which is interesting to say. But one of the unique things is in a conference situation, typically it's not people from the industry managing the conference, but we did that. So we're lumber people, we're construction people. We've spent our life in that world and now have the privilege to host the International Mass Timber Conference.
Wow. So
Wow.
you had a little experience with the Small Logs Conference, and then you rolled your experience into the Mass Timber Conference. How did you decide Portland?
So the I-5 corridor is such a huge corridor for the lumber world. We wanted to get kind of on that coast. Portland is unique, and there's a lot of political will in Oregon for the lumber industry. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always perfect, but there's a lot of political will for that. That's a start. And then they jumped on very quickly with D.R. Johnson and others kind of birthing the mass timber movement. Mass timber is nothing new. I mean, you think of glulam beams have been in existence for hundreds of years. Um, Cross-laminated timber is the name you hear a lot, but there's all kinds of other products that make up mass timber. We look at it as engineered wood products, and mass timber is kind of a joint combination. But to answer your question, Natalie, it's interesting. We had a keynote speaker a few years back by the name of Hubert Romberg. He owns Romberg Holdings in Europe, one of the largest construction companies in Europe. He also founded a company called Cree, which they're building only in timber. They do hybrid buildings, which is a great process all over the world. And Hubert, not prodded at all, was on stage. He's very charismatic. And he basically said, hey, Portland is becoming the intellectual capital for mass timber in the world. And we saw that coming, Craig Rawlings in particular, Tom Waddell. And what's ended up happening is there's not many places in the world that you can go and you can choose from 50, 60, 70 mass timber buildings to visit,
Mm-hmm.
multiple manufacturing facilities, Freers and, Timber Lab and on and on. There's not many places like that. The other thing is the convention center is fantastic to work with. And I've said this before, but I think it's bullshit to pay $250 for a hotel room. And that's about what they cost in Portland. But you go to San Francisco or Chicago or Boston, and it's $400 to $500. And it's very easy for people to get in and out of Portland. And now we got a huge draw for mass timber.
Right.
Yeah.
The airport.
Interestingly enough, and not to be arrogant or cocky, but the first presentation on that airport was done by a keynote speaker at our conference in 2018. It was announced a little premature, but in reality, the partners that built that airport and the political will that came from that was kind of birthed at the conference. I thought they were full of shit, but they ended up getting it done, and it's a gateway now for our conference. We have tours and things like that around it, but it's a really interesting, cool story. And now there's multiple airports around the world going to use mass timber.
It's amazing.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the conference. For somebody who hasn't been, what does a typical day at the conference look like? It seems like there's so much to do. Like, what's an effective use of time?
It's a great question, and especially for people in the lumber business or just starting in the lumber business. One of the things that we do that's unique as a conference is we're an education conference to start. We've grown and now we have this huge, massive exhibit hall because people want to show off their stuff and get orders, right? And sell stuff. But what's unique about it is you have all parts of the supply chain. So literally you'll be at an education session and you could be sitting next to a logger and she owns a logging company, or an engineer or an architect or a construction company or a money person, the developer side, or a nonprofit or a Forest Service employee. It's a really eclectic group of people. It's very, very diverse. We're very unusual in the construction and wood industry. Typically, about 7 to 9% of the audience and speakers are women or people of color. This year, I just looked at it, we'll have 41% of our speakers are people of color or women. That's by design. But so to answer your question, how do you take advantage of the time is you kind of got to rally. On Tuesday, we have a couple of things. We have tours, which are fantastic. But for somebody new, we have a Mass Timber 101 workshop. It's from 12:30 to 2:45. It's an extra fee. It's nominal fee, but it takes you through the basics of mass timber. It gets a little bit engineering and architecture kind of feel to it, but a lot of different people attend. Woodworks, our co-producer, puts that on, and they have a bunch of people that share thoughts and ideas. It's really interactive. And then this year, which is interesting and maybe interesting for your audience, we have 2 opening keynotes at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. One of those is a panel that's hosted by it's the Brotherhood of Carpentry and Joineries, and they talk specifically about job site safety and implementation of installation techniques on a job site. That's one. The second one, which may hit your guys' sweet spot, is how does sustainable lumber affect engineered wood products, and where does it come from? So we've got the president of Georgia Pacific Lumber, Fritz Mason, coming. We've got Katie, the head of sustainability for Weyerhaeuser. Monica, the head of sustainability from Boise Cascade. Jason Weber, who's with Red Built, which is owned by Hampton Lumber in your backyard. Moderated by a guy named Pete Stewart. He owns a company called Resource Wise. They're a kind of a legendary company in the wood business, do business all over the world. And that's an hour-long kind of talk about, hey, what's going on from the lumber perspective and how does this fit? It'll be an interesting, well-attended event. It'll be the who's who of the lumber people from around the world. And again, don't mean to be arrogant, but about 35 to 37% of our audience is from outside of North America. We'll have probably 40 countries attend this year.
How many countries?
We had 39 last year, so we're hoping for 40. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of value in what you guys pack into those. What is it, 3 days total?
Yeah, it is. So you got Tuesday is the kind of the opening day, and then you got the networking kind of opening reception, and then Wednesday and Thursday, there's all these really cool, interesting opening keynote. This year, Wednesday is Portland, Oregon based. You're going to hear about a $300 million mass timber project that's happening in Portland around the Albina district. It's not fantasy. It's already happening. Several buildings are built, more in process. You're going to hear about that. And then on Thursday, you're going to hear about AI and the AEC community and what happens with that, and then how the political will is so important. So we have a company by the name of Built by Nature, from Europe. Paul King, their CEO, is going to talk about what they're doing in Europe. They're all about timber and wood buildings. And then you'll have Scott Francisca, and you got a couple other folks. Amy, she's an engineering expert in that field. She's going to talk. She does stuff worldwide. She owns a engineering company. And then Lucas Epp, who is part of Structure Craft and Dowell laminated companies. Really interesting folks that are going to kick it off. And then you go into the sessions, and we've got 20 different sessions.
Wow.
This thing sounds like it snowballed into something huge. Like bigger than I can really grasp. I think going is going to be very helpful. How did you pull that off? How long have you been holding this conference, and how did it grow?
I'm smiling because it's a weird story, I guess. But so in 2016, we were finishing up our last small log conference and kind of birthed this idea and had a lot of great support. And but we didn't know, we don't know what we don't know. And so we get this place. It was at a hotel in Portland, downtown Portland. And all of a sudden we start registration, and we hit 200, and then we hit 300. We're like, holy shit, what's the capacity? And the answer was 550. Okay. So we thought it would be great if we had 200. Well, we shut it off, and it hit 548.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
It was so insane, and all kinds of shit happened at that. But there was 28 exhibitors. 27 of those are exhibiting in 2025.
Oh, that's
Wow.
awesome.
There happens to be 200 more of them exhibiting.
Oh my God.
And just for people in your world, you're going to get to see an actual building being built on the floor, a mass timber
Wow.
erected, and you're going to see demonstrations on how to use different products and tools. So what I would kind of challenge everybody, if you have the chance to go, there's day passes and there's full passes and there's all of that. It's kind of expensive, but that's the way life is. It's a great investment.
Right.
Because if you're a trader in the industry, niche industries are the best ones. This is a niche industry that uses very little fiber now, less than 2%, but it gets 99% of the press. It's helped, and as Craig would say, who's been around it forever, and others, the mass timber industry has given a voice finally to the timber and lumber industry that is non-biased. Who wants to listen to a fat old white guy like me? They want to hear it. They want to hear it from somebody else. And that was the turning point. In 2019, we had Michelle Kaufman, who's the head of R&D for Google, get on stage. All of those people, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, they all came to the conference. We couldn't put their name of their company on their badge because they were secret. And they didn't want to, and they were testing it out. But I'll tell you, so Michelle's up there. She's from Google. And she's like, we're not renting our buildings anymore. All of those tech companies rented their buildings. They've all changed path, and they're all building their own buildings now. And Google is up on stage, Michelle. She's very charismatic. She's brilliant. She's like, we're Google. We like mass timber. And that's what we're going to build and go forward. So you got,
Wow.
then Facebook followed. Microsoft's on their 17th mass timber building. They just built a
Wow.
data center, the first one in the East Coast. Well, Facebook's got 27 data centers to build over the next several years. What are they doing? Shifting from tilt-up concrete to mass timber. Exciting times. But that gave a voice. And then you had incredible things happen. So a guy by the name of Tim Gochman and Boris Gochman came to the conference about that same time. And they came to Craig and I wanted to get introduced to folks. They said, we're building a skyscraper in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We thought, oh God, no way. But as it turns out, they were pretty pedigreed and really smart. And now there's a 25-story mass timber skyscraper in downtown Milwaukee. And it got
Wow.
incredible press around the world. I mean, who would have ever thought they're talking about lumber on Good Morning America? Who would have ever
Right.
thought they're talking about lumber on, the Meet the Press on Sunday morning? A feature article on Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, all this
Mhm.
other stuff. That doesn't happen normally for the lumber industry. So it's been really good for all of us.
Yeah.
It feels like this is solving some of the long-standing PR issues our industry has faced.
Yeah. I mean, it's given a good light on it.
Right.
So I'll give one other example. I get fired up about it, and especially talking to folks like you that are in the business but haven't been to the conference. We had another person, Mark Wishney. He was the head of forestry for the Nature Conservancy. The Sierra Club was there. So you think about that, and Nature Conservancy is on the stage in front of 1,000 people or whatever it was at the time, saying, "Hey, we're good with cutting down trees as long as you don't turn that into a parking lot afterwards." And the reasoning behind that is wood is the ultimate double dip. You use wood, you put it in a building, it sequesters carbon. Then you replant the forest. Pretty green, incredible product. There's lots of things that go with that, but the need for forest health is pretty imperative across the world. You guys know it from smoke in your eyes and in me in Missoula, Montana at times, that there's management that needs to happen. And part of that is cutting down trees, doing it properly. So we spend a lot of time at the conference talking about that. It's part of it. How do you do that? How do you live up to your bargain and do those things and then create these beautiful, sustainable buildings that have to pencil out? They have to make sense. They have to be a good return on your investment. And wood is um, wood is becoming a huge, powerful tool in the sustainability fight. It's one of the main reasons the tech companies are using wood and mass timber in particular for their buildings because they hit their ESG requirements then.
Hmm.
Mm.
It just feels like you and the conference and the people involved are so forward thinking, and it's really exciting. I feel exciting. Excited. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this in the day to day, and so it's nice to know that there's a place for that in the conference. There's a place for the positive messaging. So even some people who are in the industry don't know some of the statistics, don't know how to talk about it. And Chelsea and I talk a lot about, if we just educate our own people, then we have however many, you know, friends, colleagues that can be positive influencers
Disciples.
on
Yeah.
yeah, disciples on the industry. And so to hear that you're doing that at a large scale as part of the conference is very exciting.
It's fun, and we're not we're just a part of it. We're an enabler, a network. But somebody you should have on your podcast is Russ Vaughan. Russ Vaughan, he's Vaughan Lumber, you
Hmm.
guys know them. And then
Hmm.
he left that to form Vaughan Timbers. Real ballsy move to leave a safe, incredible family company to start his own deal. One of the things he says, which is he's an incredible speaker, way better than me. He spoke all over the world, but he he says something that's really intriguing to me. He said, mass timber is not the product. The product is a healthy forest. And a healthy forest needs management and needs to utilize these small diameter timber and create really cool products. Could be cross laminated timber, could be glue lambs, could be MPP Freer's product, could be something else. But entrepreneurs win the day. But if you think about that, the result is forest health. That resonates with a lot of people. And then you've got really cool products that are created through an engineering process. So you create jobs all along that supply chain, and then you figure out new products that are coming to the table that can create opportunities for really cool buildings, and then be one of the pieces that can help the housing situation. You hear a lot about modular. Well, mass timber and forms of mass timber really fit that particular process. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's really cool way to think about it, as that's the product that everybody wants. Everybody wants a sustainable forest. We want to keep our forests healthy and we want to keep them thriving. And we all do better when our forests are healthy. I mean, economy wise, jobs wise, everybody benefits. We all feel better. So that's a
You
really
mentioned
interesting way to put
part
it.
of that storytelling. That storytelling comes from people sharing that and getting passionate about that. And, you mentioned it earlier, but the lumber industry's had black eyes in the past. So is a lot of industries.
Right.
But we've got a great story to tell, but it needs to come at the world at a little different angle. It's one of the reasons we're so involved in the social media part. We've been a virtual company for all of our 18 years. Craig and Tom are really great at it. But Craig can put out an article and we'll get 20,000 views in a day. And they're not just lumber people. They're people that are interested in what sustainability can mean in lumber as a core. And in your guys' business, and the people that listen to this podcast, it's a great industry. I've been in it for 40 years. I don't think of myself as a media person. I think of myself as a lumber guy, and lumber guy, lumber girl, whatever you want to call it, right? But it helps the economy. Construction, lumber production, the lumber industry really touches so many parts. You think about where that is in the woods, the trucks to move it, the mills to put it together, the engineers and architects to design it, the facilitators in bringing products to the marketplace like yourself. Really impactful along that whole corridor. And we're seeing it on a global scale. I mean, just a few examples. Who would have ever thought, and you may or may not know this, I'm going to look at the expression on your face. What's one of the biggest projects in mass timber in the world right now? And I'll answer it for you. Bentonville, Arkansas.
Walmart?
Walmart. See, there's the expression. Did you know Walmart has the largest mass timber project going on in the world right now?
No.
No. But guess what? You come to the conference and you get to hear all about that project. We had the privilege to visit that project. Why did they choose mass timber? Because it's a sustainable product, and they believe in the lumber products. And then you walk through, one example is Walmart's campus is 350 acres. Okay. It's for their headquarters. I forget how many thousand people are going to work there. They built a world-class health center, for fitness and health. You go in there, 2 Olympic-sized pools.
Oh my gosh.
And the roof is glulam beams. Their entranceway is all about timber. Who would have ever thought that you could have a 25-story skyscraper in Milwaukee and more to come?
Right.
A Walmart headquarters. On and on. And little old Missoula, Montana, we've got just finished a 4-story bank building that's all mass timber. And don't tell anybody, but they came in 40% below the other choices in cost.
Wow.
Because it went up so fast. We're hopefully building a 7-story new forestry building on the campus. There's probably 8 or 10 buildings here alone. You go over to
Wow.
Bozeman, there's way more than that. That's just Missoula. But in your backyard in Portland, oh my God,
We have a lot, yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, down to just the local libraries. I think you're touring one on the
My
Mass Timber
library,
Conference.
my
Yeah.
personal library. It's very exciting.
Out in Gresham.
How cool is that to do that? Let alone the airport project. Not all the projects have to be big, but I guess the thing that I would just say again for people that are getting into the lumber industry, you don't have to be ashamed of it. I have 2 daughters, right? Katie, who's 30, Emma's 28. They know dad made a living cutting down trees and selling wood, but they also know the next part of the story. And that really gravitates with Craig and Tom and I. And, when you go to the conference and see all these incredibly smart people that believe in the movement from all walks of life, it's pretty extraordinary when you see that. And again, not to be arrogant, I mentioned that before, but when you can bring that together, we'll have about 3,000 attendees, maybe a little bit more. It's really consolidated and it's pretty intimidating, but everybody's friendly and they like to have fun. The construction industry and the wood business, it's a fun industry. What other business can you, and I know you can do it, Chelsea, you can go out and buy $500,000 worth of lumber today. Do you ever sign a written contract?
No. Don't tell my CFO that.
Yeah. I was in charge of one year buying probably $500 million worth of lumber. And I was in Chicago at the time. And all my friends work on the board of trade and this, and they're like, oh my God, you got to have 10 lawyers behind it. I said, I
Yeah.
didn't sign one contract. What do you mean? And the prices fluctuate minute to minute. Most people don't know that in the
Right.
lumber industry, right? Yeah, never did. Never had an issue. But that's where the trust in this industry. But it's great to see you, Chelsea, and you, Natalie, in it. And then, working together, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, we love it, and we love to see, newer generations coming in. We thought we were next gen. We're not next gen anymore. There's a
No,
whole
Chelsea and I
another
just
one
woke up one day and we're
below
like,
us.
wait, it's not us anymore.
But
How does that happen?
I'm in the sunset of my career, so it is what it is. But
yeah, I feel like you have to die to get out of lumber because everybody I know doesn't really ever retire. They have too much fun, like you said. I mean, it's the people and it's a fun and it's a feel good product. I talk about this all the time. You go to our mill, and where else do you leave with nature all over you? Like if you go to any other type of mill or manufacturing facility, you might be worried about dyes, inks, leads, whatever you're exposed to with the smells or the chemicals. Not in lumber. You might walk with some sawdust on your shoulder, but I mean, and then what's going up into the air? Steam, and the smell of lumber. So I don't know. It's a feel good product. I feel good working in the lumber industry because of that. I know I'm solving the problem. I'm not part of the problem. It's not going to go end up in a landfill somewhere.
well, you think about it this week, and your taping will go out later, but it's the end of Women in Construction Week. Well, we started something last year. When I say we, I had nothing to do with it. Aaron from Swinnerton, Whitney from Skanska, our own Shelby from our conference, and a bunch of other people decided to host what they called the Women in Timber Power Hour last year. Incredibly successful. Our keynote speaker was a lady by the name of Emily, who does a thing called Girls Garage out of California. So she was the keynote speaker for the entire conference. Incredible. I cried. It was such an incredible thing. They bring in young women to learn construction trades. But I bring that up because you were asking about what you should go and see and do. 5:30 on Wednesday is the Women in Timber Power Hour at the conference in the atrium because it's too big to handle in any room. We're going to have over 500 people at that event. And
Wow.
it's a networking event just to say, hey, don't be intimidated. You got a tribe here of really smart, motivated people. Let's, where is that mentorship going to happen? You got Susan Jones, one of the most incredible architects in the world, that's out of Seattle, designed buildings, her own house out of mass timber. She'll be there. And you got Tanya Luthley, one of the premier engineers in the world, going to be there. And, Whitney, who I mentioned from Skanska, and, on down the list, Taylor from Swinnerton in Timber Labs in your backyard. Incredible role models to show people that it's not just what it used to be. This industry is changing, just like the architect and AEC and engineering community is changing. It's all about smart people and doing the right thing.
Right.
So, I don't want to overblow it, but it's a lot of fun. And we're excited. We're only a couple weeks away. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if
We
I
plan to
wasn't,
be at that power hour, right, Nat?
yep.
Yep.
I was going to say, if I wasn't already excited, I'm even more excited
Now
now.
I'm getting
So
jacked up.
hopefully our listeners will feel the same.
Well, I'd love it if you guys come up and say hello, and I'd love to walk the floor with you a little bit just to get a sense of it. And you're going to see a lot of people, and you're going to meet a lot of people that you would probably want to meet from the industry. But it's just, we like to have fun. I mean, we got a 3-hour happy hour before that. If that says anything, that's the kind of people we are. But
Yes.
the
Yes.
exhibit floor is going to be something else this year. We've got, I think, 13 or 15 companies coming in on Sunday because they need to get in there a couple days early because they're building 2-story mass timber.
Wow.
Wow. I love that because it's so interactive. I mean, not only are you going out on these tours, but actually, if somebody can't go on a tour and they're only going to be inside the convention center, they're able to get inspired just by being there, and even just walking the main floor. Sounds incredible. I mean, it's truly incredible event that you put on. Started from you thinking there being 200 people, and now there's over 3,000 and almost 40 countries represented. That's incredible, and I think that is a testament that people are excited about it, and the fact that, as you were discussing, the variety of people that come. I think you're more likely to attract talent if the talent sees representation. And so, just even with the Women in Power Hour, you don't know who that might inspire to, come into the industry, stay in the industry, maybe explore a different side of the industry they weren't aware of. And so all of that is really, really exciting. And this is the place to be, to capture that moment.
We think so, and it takes a huge amount of people that are passionate about it and supporters that we have. We've just been able to, enable it to happen and grow it. And, I guess I know we're kind of coming to an end, but one thing that will happen here early next week is our mobile conference app will come out. And it's, you got to be very careful these days with data and information. So it's a secure way to connect with people. It's kind of like LinkedIn where you go, hey, Natalie, this is Arnie, I want to connect. And then you connect, and then you decide how you want to share that information. But it'll be a way, where else can you go and you get 3,000 potential contacts?
Right.
Totally.
That's how you make money, right? I mean,
That is.
so
Speaking to a lumber trader's heart right now.
right on.
So if people want to get more information right now, where should they head?
Go to the International Mass Timber Conference website, and there's ways, you can go to the register, you can see the agenda. There's a few tour seats left. They'll probably sell out in the next couple of days. You can sign up for that. You can sign up for that workshop that I mentioned. If you register, you need to sign up just for an RSVP for the Women in Timber Power Hour. It's free, but there's choices on there. But just go to that website, and then, like I said, once you register, you'll get access to the mobile app and all those things.
Great. Well, we're excited to see you there. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming on the podcast and
Yeah.
getting us pumped up, and I cannot wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're super excited. And the
March
dates again are
25th,
March 25th through
opening
the
day.
28th, right?
Yeah, 25th through the 27th.
To the 27th. Okay. Awesome. We'll link all that in our show notes as well, just so people can easily click it. But Arnie, you've been awesome. I'm super excited at just about overall being in this industry, and having thought leaders like you bring these types of events to us is so important. So we've got lots to learn from people like you, and thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with our guests. We really appreciate it.
Vice versa. I learn from people every day, and I'm encouraged to see you guys taking great next steps, and excited that you're coming to the conference. So
Thanks, Arnie. See you in a couple weeks.
yeah, sounds good.